All right, so I see lots of questions and comments on Facebook and other places about how much does it cost to buy a GMC motorhome? How much does it cost to maintain it? How much does it cost to fix X, Y, Z, so on? And if you read all the comments on the Facebook posts or other places, you could basically boil it down to it depends, right? There are lots of variables. Every coach is a little different at this point because they've all been through a kind of different path over the last 45 to 50 years. And so I don't think there's really a good way to generalize exactly how much you should spend when you buy a GMC motorhome or how much it might cost to fix things. But because there are so many questions on the topic, I thought I would share some of my experience. So maybe because I am an engineer by training, I keep records of everything, and I have spreadsheets where I keep track of all of the projects I do and all of the costs of everything and where I source the parts and all of those kinds of things. And so I thought I would just give an overview of my experience, and you can infer some from that probably. And of course, you can also comment on your own experience on what you have spent or costs on various things. I think an important note is that I do almost all of the work on the coach myself. And so I'm going to give some specific numbers of what we spent on things and what our costs were. If you're paying somebody to do the work, you can probably double whatever number I give because labor is usually going to be, about the same as the parts costs. And so I'll start out with some of the high level things. So this spreadsheet, and I just printed these out. I have much more detailed versions of these on the computer with lots of things that I use to keep track of all of this. But just generally speaking, when we bought Edna, we got really good records with her. She came with a whole filing box full of receipts and documentation and instructions and the actual owner's manuals and repair manuals and all kinds of things. And so if you're looking at a coach and it has good maintenance records, or even if it's just a log where they've written down oil changes and tire rotations and other maintenance and repair things, that's worth something just on its own, knowing some of the history of the vehicle. And so I was really happy. We bought our coach in 2001, so we're in our third year of owning her, and the records and receipts went back to 2011. And so we had about 10 years of information leading up to when we bought Edna. And it included the person that we bought the coach from and the previous owner. And so lots of good information. We don't necessarily have receipts for all of those things, but we have dates and we have mileage for many of them. And so that I felt was a big bonus when we bought this coach. Talking about dollars. So we spent about $17,000 on Edna when we bought her. So if you go back and watch some of our early videos, you can kind of get an idea of what condition she was in. Overall, she ran good, she drove good. We had a little breakdown driving her home from where we bought her, but relatively kind of simple things to do to get her to the point where we could kind of start using her. There's been lots and lots of repairs since then, but 17,000 I think was a pretty good deal. The records from the previous owners recorded about $23,000 of work that had been done before we bought her. And so I think that's a good indication that this is not a investment type of vehicle. You're probably going to put more money into it than it's worth. So we view Edna as a hobby and a way to get out and go camping more and have more family time. And so whatever it costs us is just an investment toward those kind of family things that we do and the hobby. So that's something to maybe get out of the way right away, is that it's probably not a good investment. But it can be a lot of fun and an interesting hobby and a cool vehicle to keep on the road. So that's kind of the starting point. I have kept records on the various repairs and things that we've done since then, just to give you an idea of the volume of things. In the first year, we had 74 items that we did. Not all of those things were repair or maintenance things. Some of them were things like working on some reupholstery things, maybe getting sewer and water motorhome things that didn't come with the coach. Some of them barbecue. We wanted a barbecue that we could haul in the coach. So some of them were things like supplies that we wanted for camping, and were kind of personal choice type of things. Some coaches might come with more of the accessories or other things that you might want. Some of them might not. But that's something to keep in mind. We had a lot of little things that we did in that first year to try to, take care of things that were bothering us. Every time we drove somewhere or went camping, we realized we needed to tighten the mirrors because they were coming loose, or things like that. So lots of things in the first year. The second year, the list was a little bit shorter. So we had 51 items on my spreadsheet that we did the second year. And now this is the third year, and we're kind of into the fall. We've got a handful of more things that we're going to do this year. We've only done 14 things so far this year. So it's kind of slowed down a little bit as we've taken care of some of the things that were really bothering us, and just equipped the motorhome to have the items that we wanted. So that's kind of the overview and maybe the scale of things that we've done. Now I think maybe I'll touch on some of the types of projects that we've done. So one of the first things we needed to do was replace the tires. So the tires were old, they were worn out, and so we decided we needed to replace tires. That was a fairly expensive proposition. There are 7 tires altogether. We wanted to replace the spare tire also because they were all fairly old. And so we did that. It was about $1,900 for 7 new tires. We didn't go with the most expensive tires. We also didn't go with the cheapest tires. And we went to a tire shop that we thought had a good reputation and had good warranty and things like that. But tires, regardless of how much you drive and how much you wear the tread, probably need to be replaced about every 7 years or so, just from an age standpoint. And so that's a pretty big expense all at once. Some other things that we did, let's see, looking at my list here, we replaced the refrigerator. That was also another pretty big thing. The refrigerator that came with Edna actually worked okay, but it only worked on 12 volt and 120 volt. And we didn't always have a place to plug in. And on 12 volt, it ran the house batteries down pretty quick. And so we wanted to get a refrigerator that would run on propane, because that's a more efficient way to kind of run the refrigerator off grid. And so that meant getting a new refrigerator and plumbing in the propane. And so altogether on that project, we spent about $1,600. The refrigerator itself was a little over 1,000 of that, but I had to do a bunch of construction. You can watch the video. Actually, had a couple videos around that, and removing the old fridge and installing the new one. We did a bunch of insulation. We did running the propane line. Now, I had the advantage of a relative who was gas certified and had all the equipment to bend the line and all of that. But if you're doing something like that, you might be paying somebody, right, which would add quite a bit to the cost of the project. There are lots and lots of small things. So when we resealed the rails along the roof, or when we resealed the fan or moved a fan on the roof, they weren't really expensive. We might have spent $20, $30, $40, $50 on a project, but it all adds up. And every time you do one of those things, it's another $20, another $50, another $100. And that's if you're doing it yourself. You can double that, maybe triple it if you're paying somebody to do those things. Another big expense was the air conditioning unit. So this didn't have an AC unit at all when we bought it. It was one of those things that was missing. It had been removed to remove weight and improve aerodynamics, things like that. we wanted an air conditioner because we thought that was a nice feature of a motorhome, having a way to cool down on a hot day if you're plugged in or running a generator. So we spent about $1,100 on a single air conditioning unit. You can watch the video on that to see what we did. Again, I did the install myself. So if you're taking it to an RV shop and paying somebody to do it, it's going to be more expensive. That project, I think, was pretty easy. A lot of people could do that on their own if you can, carry a heavy AC unit up to the roof, or you have some friends to help get it up there. The technical aspects of the install weren't that bad. Let's see, other things that we did. Carburetor overhaul. So for quite a while, terrible warm up, often would die and then have a hard time restarting. When we tried to drive, we'd get hesitation, dying. Eventually I took it to a shop and have them rebuild the carburetor. That was about $400. So that's one I didn't do myself. If I had done it myself, it probably could have been a $100 job, but I don't really have experience with carburetors and I wanted to pay an expert to do that. It's run great since then. So I think that was $400 well spent, but it just adds up. Everything takes either time or money or both. Another kind of big thing that we did was we installed the generator. So when we bought Edna, she didn't have a generator at all. It was just a storage area back there. And so we got a original Onan 6 kilowatt generator, redid wiring, did insulation, did lots of things to install it and get it working. All together on that project, I spent about $1,100 between the generator and then all the other work and parts and accessories and paint and things that I bought to do that. So pretty big project. Now that we have a generator, we don't use it very often, but it's nice to have that as a solution if we need power on the road or when we're camping. But there's just lots and lots of things like that. And so in the 2.5 years, I guess this is the third summer, so maybe 3 years that we've had Edna, we've spent about $12,000 on repairs that we've done. I've also bought bunch of parts and things that I still need to do. So I actually have probably about another $4,000 of things that I just need to get to the project. It was easier to buy the things and have them ready than I've had time to actually get the work done. So in another few months, we could probably say that 12,000 is going to be closer to 14,000 or 16,000 since we bought the coach. So if we add all of that up, we could say, maybe the 23,000 that the previous owners have done, and the 12 or 14,000 that we have put into the coach. We're kind of getting close to maybe $40,000 invested in this coach over the last 12 years or so. So not a, and that's just money that was spent repairing, upgrading, fixing. Doesn't include, the actual coach cost itself. So, and I guess if you've seen our videos, she's not perfect, right? We have plenty of other things to do, but actually we're really enjoying the condition that she's in, and we're getting more chances to go camping and use Edna as a camper rather than just doing projects. So, but I think that gives just an idea of some of the costs that go into, getting a motorhome like this and then continuing to do projects and fix things up. Now, a lot of the things that we've done, we didn't have to do, right? She probably would have still driven down the road with many of these things not being done. So a lot of it is your priorities, what your budget is, if you're paying somebody to do these things or if you're doing them yourself. But I think it's helpful to have an idea of what you're getting into, right? This is, as many other people say, it's a classic car, it's a home, it's 50 years old-ish, and there's lots and lots of things that need to be done on it or could be done. So something to think about. If you have questions, comments, put them in the comments. I will, I feel free to ask any other questions you want. I'm happy to answer whatever I can and give your own experiences, right? What kind of expenses have you had since you got your motorhome, and share that with the community. But I think it's good to know what it takes to keep a motorhome like this on the road.